Welcome to the first episode of Series 87, everyone. This month we have returning guest James D'Amato to learn about the game he is co-designing with another previous guest, Drew Merzieski, called Cosmic Century Knights, a retro anime and JRPG-inspired fantasy TTRPG. In today's episode, we learn all about the history of the game, including some interesting information on the history of JRPGs in general. But before we get to that, we do have some calls to action coming up after the show. Here's what to expect. Join us here after the show, where we will have info on our latest stream on the One Shot Twitch channel, as well as information about our Patreon, how to leave a review for the show, and our patron thank yous as usual. With all of that out of the way, enjoy the show, everyone. Welcome to Character Creation Cast, a show where we discuss and create characters, the best part of role-playing games, with guests using their favorite systems. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan, and this episode, my co-host Amelia and I are excited to welcome back James D'Amato, notable author, podcast network overlord, and most importantly, co-creator of the game that we are covering in this series, Cosmic Century Knights, a retro anime and JRPG-inspired fantasy tabletop role-playing game about wielding one of 100 unique swords to save the world.
James, welcome back to our show. We were just discussing it's been quite a while since you've been on here. We can't remember exactly when, but too long, probably.
Hello,
5 years,
heroes.
3 months, 14 days.
Do you even remember my voice? Do you know who this is? This is James. This is your friend, James.
Mm-hmm.
You've all grown so old.
We've matured like good cheese, being the Wisconsinites that we are.
Like good cheese.
True.
Love
Like
it.
Good cheese. Can you tell our audience who you are, along with your pronouns, just a few of the things that you do, because we do only have so much time, and where people can find you online.
Of course. I am James D'Amato, pronouns he, him. I am the president of the One Shot Podcast Network. I'm the host of the Campaign Skyjacks and Star Wall podcasts, which I mentioned because those are both the shows that Ryan edits.
I do edit those.
I also write a series of books for Adams Media called the Ultimate RPG Guides. There is actually a lot of character creation stuff that is contained within those volumes. And I also happen to be a role-playing game designer, and we are about to investigate one of my most recent designs, the first, I would say, full-size role-playing game that I've actually ever published.
Is that true?
I guess Oh Captain, My Captain, technically beats it to the punch, but it's a card-based game. It's very different from the traditional book-bound format, which Cosmic Century Knights most certainly is.
Absolutely. Well, because Oh Captain, My Captain's like the storytelling, prompt-driven sort of, for the Queen.
The word, it is a descended from the Queen game. So the word count difference between Oh Captain, My Captain and Cosmic Century Knights is just wild. Just fully, I think Captain, My Captain is 3,000. And this is, much like my other books, around 50,000.
Oh, wow.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'm excited. I've already done character creation for at least a playtest version of this in the past, which was super fun. So I can't wait to see how Amelia feels about it. Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and get into it. And we're going to start by discussing what this game is all about.
What's in a game?
Okay, James, What is the core concept of Cosmic Century Knights?
So Cosmic Century Knights takes place in what starts out as a mostly generic fantasy world. And 300 years ago in this world's timeline, a gigantic sword from outer space crashed into the planet and stuck the planet through. And as it was landing, it launched 100 legendary swords all over the world. And in that 300 years since, people have been finding these blades, picking them up, and using their miraculous powers to become what we know as Century Knights. Anybody who has one of these legendary swords is a Century Knight, and kind of that is where everybody's common experience is going to end, because a great deal of this game is driven by the characters that you create and the antagonists that you create. So there's a lot of customization in the game. But it is typical fantasy adventure fare, with the hook that this was inspired by retro fantasy anime and JRPGs. There's this wonderful period in gaming history where the first kind of pulp and classic fantasy fiction migrated its way to Japanese translation around the 60s. And then in the late 70s and 80s is when Japanese creators who grew up reading some of these stories get their hands on the reins. And around the 70s, it wasn't, or around the 80s, early 80s, D&D gets published in Japan. So it starts to really inspire a lot of very influential creators. The people who created Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy were influenced both by D&D and by this classic fantasy fiction. And they made art based on these things, these stories that they found so compelling. But unlike a lot of the fantasy that I would say we see here in the States, and since the sort of inceptive era, they were not trying to make something that feels like, say, Lord of the Rings or Conan. They were like, these are cool ideas and I want to have my own spin on it. So when you look at a JRPG, it is worlds apart from D&D. It may be doing things that D&D does, but I could not call Final Fantasy, even the first Final Fantasy, the one that is closest to this, I could not call that, that's a D&D game. Very clearly straightforward a D&D game. They're already questioning a lot of assumptions in that genre to make their own thing. And there's something about that energy that I find intoxicating. I love opening something up and feeling like I don't know all the rules and all I can see in front of me are possibilities. So I wanted to try and bottle the energy of you got to encounter this thing when you were younger that really awakened your imagination, that excited you, and filled your head with ideas that were unbound by traditions and references and whatnot. And you use that to express something. And that's kind of what Cosmic Century Knights is about. It is taking inspiration from anime, specifically shonen anime, and trying to give the cool, creative innovations made there to the audience so that they can go forward and make their own stuff.
Very cool.
So you mentioned that there is this very specific moment of this sword from space crashing into Earth and these hundreds of other magical swords and things like that. Are there other elements of the setting that are specifically set that you've laid out? What are the world building capabilities for people in this game?
Yeah. The answer is yes and no. Like I said, the blank palette that everybody starts with is that generic fantasy setting, but the cosmic blade, as we call the gigantic blade that stuck itself through the world, shows up and starts to introduce these space fantasy elements. From there, there is a 20-item list that at the very beginning of the game, and we will roll this list in our creation, that has some general world building questions, and that kind of sets the foundation for whatever you're working with. Then from there, you create characters, and these characters are made up of 7 different aspects, which we'll go through in character creation. But when you fill in those aspects, you actually start to unearth world details. One of the most influential is the character's birth. Your birth is like our word for your fantasy species. And you will get a list that you have like random results on, and those will give you generic things like beast folk. You are some sort of like animal informed sapient creature. But what the beast folk means to you is entirely up to the player's whim. You could be a bird person. You could be your generic cat boy. You could go really exotic and be some kind of mantis shrimp creature. All of that is up to the player's whims. And suddenly, like when you make that decision, well, now we know there are mantis shrimp people in this world, and they have an effect on the politics and whatnot, and a bunch of decisions get made from there. And then the last thing that really determines a lot of the world building and is kind of the blank slate that everybody starts out with are the antagonists. So this is one thing that we probably won't get around to in today's character creation. Once you've created your characters, there are in the book 3 different main antagonist factions. You can either start by just developing one or developing all 3 if you like a lengthy session 0. And those antagonist groups are going to have a tremendous impact on what the stakes are with your world, what dangers you're worried about. And for the record, those are the Star Conquerors, which are kind of like an invasive alien empire. They are there. Then there are the Fell Knights, which are people who have century blades but do not use them for good, like we assume the people who are creating characters are going to. And the Blight Labyrinth, which is a parasitic alternate dimension that will like show up as like doorways and whatnot in this world, and you open it up and there's a dungeon in there, and that dungeon is trying to lure people and creatures into it so that it can digest them. And
yikes.
It's all really wild, and depending on which antagonist you make first, it has a huge impact on what your world is. And frankly, after the first book is published and we keep adding new antagonists to the game, the antagonists that you mix and match are also going to have a huge impact on the world. But like even building a single antagonist is going to set a really, really dramatic difference. If you make some choices for the Star Conquerors, their empire spans almost the entire universe, and your planet is like maybe one of the lone holdouts. But you could also have a thing where they're like kind of starting their invasion here, or they're not really invading in the way that we understand it because they have a very alien way of thinking. So there are a lot of different ways that could go down, and that's going to have a major impact on your setting.
That's awesome. Yeah, like the snowball effect in this game is like palpable. Like even each choice that we make as characters snowballs into everybody else's characters, which snowballs into how the world looks and feels.
Yeah, part of the design theory there is I want everybody starting out with very straightforward, familiar things. We all know that we're going to be playing a knight and we're going to have a really cool sword. But every little decision that we make along the way is going to push it into a territory where it is completely ours in a way.
So what sort of tools then do we need to play this game?
Well, this system takes a standard set of polyhedral dice, a D4 up through a D20, and in at least 3 rolls, you're going to be using D percentile, rolling 2 D10s together.
Awesome. I have those.
That's good.
Oh, I should probably grab
Can you
some.
imagine if we had gotten this far to making that podcast and I didn't have
Polyhedral dice?
Yes.
Wait, we're making a podcast?
I've been an Ennies judge for 4 years. I don't own any dice. I don't.
Excellent.
I'm prepared. Okay.
Yes.
I want to talk through, because I like asking this question when we have designers on, because I like to I think it starts to get at like why you made this game. So what kind of stories and themes do you want people to explore in this game?
So that is kind of baked into the way the antagonists function. I am really looking for, baseline stories of heroism. This is definitely the power fantasy of there are going to be a lot of problems in the world that you create, but because you have one of these swords, you are going to be one of the people who can address those problems. That is something that has always appealed to me about adventure fiction. So like, it's far from like the model popular in OSR. This is not like a what do they call it? It's not a meat grinder, a funnel. This isn't a funnel type game where you play weak people who die and then maybe one of them gets through and is like a cool guy. By making character, you've got a cool guy who can do stuff. The themes, though, are sort of baked into the different antagonists. There is the Star Conquerors are very much in conversation with imperialism. They've also got like some hints of like classic sci-fi alien stuff and maybe a little bit of I don't want to say cosmic horror because they are not so far down the path that like this is about a strange thing that like is incompatible with you, but like Star Conquerors can think very differently, which means like you can't evaluate their moves as an enemy the same way that you would another invading force, depending on the choices that you make.
Yeah.
The Blight Labyrinth is kind of about reckoning with history a little bit because it is something that like eats part of the world. Like it can devour an entire city, an entire civilization. And you might, to connect to your own history, have to travel into the bowels of the labyrinth to find, traces of ancient cities that it has devoured in its past. And the Fell Knights are really about how power can be misused and corrupted. These are people who ostensibly have the same agency in the world that your characters do, but they are not interested in using that in a way that bends towards justice whatsoever. So, those are like really basic themes, but of course, based on the individual choices of players, I wanted people to be able to shuffle those themes towards the things that compelled them the most.
Yeah. So it feels like it's very much about like being able to be the hero in a story, like the chance to like the actions that I take do have, like consequence. Like I am able to do things, like I have power in this world, but also like what things you want to have power over and what kinds of power you want to have are really based on like the antagonists that you choose and the decisions that you make with your characters.
Yeah. And the advancement system probably has something to say about that too. We'll get into it when we discuss leveling up. But it is very much oriented towards your character doing heroic things and becoming more capable as a result of doing that.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So I already know a lot of the capabilities of the characters since I made one myself.
We don't have to brag
a while
about
ago.
it.
I know. It's so fun though.
I know. I was telling a friend
Patreon.
this weekend that we were covering it, and he was like, "You have to let me know how it goes. You have to tell me everything." And I was like, "Well, you could just listen to my show, but maybe if you tried listening to my podcast once in a while."
What an incredible burn!
To be
I
fair,
need you to summarize your podcast.
To be fair,
I'm not going to give you the download.
He also has 2 podcasts that I do not listen to. So
sure, you're
that's
in an
real
armistice.
friendship.
Oh, you each need to agree, like in a prisoner exchange, just listen to one episode of each other's shows.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Well, so what are the capabilities of the characters that you make in this game? Like, what sort of cool, unique things can you do?
So there are 2 levels to this. The first is basic and straightforward. Simply by being a protagonist, you have a couple of things. The first is you've got effort, which is a resource that you're going to be able to pay in order to use certain abilities, and also to modify dice results. So if you make a roll and it's not quite doing what you want, you can add to those numbers by spending out of effort. We also have a system that we call the control and impact system. It is a sliding scale using polyhedral dice, where you decide how much control you want your character to have over an action versus how much of an impact you want that action to have.
Oh, interesting.
So if you, for example, want to hit something really, really hard, you can say, I'm putting all my strength into this, but I don't really have a lot of control over what I'm doing. In that case, you would roll a D4 for your control, and for your impact, which would be your damage, you would roll a D20. The likelihood on a D4 that you're going to do well enough to hit what you need to hit is low. Mm-hmm. But maybe you're spending effort into that. Maybe it's really important to you because you want that D20 of impact. So the difficulty of various challenges, or your ability to succeed at things and how much you succeed at things, is in the player's hands at all times. And that is something that is like unique to knights. Knights always have that full range of choice of, do I want to be rolling a D4 and a D20, or do I want like a D8 on my control and have a D10 impact? So literally half the potential for impact, but twice the potential for your control and accuracy. So it is a very flexible and modular thing that says success and failure are not about your character's inherent abilities. It's not about how strong your character is physically. It's how hard are they trying and what are they trying to do? So that sliding scale is part of it. And the other part of it is you have a century blade. You have one of these 100 magical swords, and each century blade has 3 blessings. There is a minor, a major, and a miraculous blessing. There are 3 different D100 lists that we will use to generate a knight's blessings. So the combination of things that you can do, I literally cannot project it. Mathematically, it would be extremely wild if anybody ever had exactly the same character and character build as anybody else who ever plays the game, because there's so much range in what those things can be. Some of those abilities on blades are straightforward, like adding elemental damage to different attacks. And some of them are super weird, especially the miraculous blessings. One of my favorites and one of the first ones I designed was the Spitus Touch, which allows you to transmute an object that you touch with your blade into spiders of equal mass. So you could just transform a wall into a gigantic pile of spiders. And that ability is what you make of it. One of the things that I say, like, this was inspired by shonen anime, and it's more of a modern shonen thing, but you'll look at series like My Hero Academia or Jujutsu Kaisen, where people have extremely specific powers that they are using in very creative ways. Having the sliding scale of risk impact and giving people very straightforward descriptions of this is what the ability does, and these are the limits around it succeeding. You as a player can creatively employ that however you want. I've had people who rolled up the Spidus Touch and be like, what would I ever do with that? Mm-hmm. And other people going, this is the most broken thing I can imagine, because really the strength of any of these blessings is how you as a player are trying to put them into use.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know when I talked to my brother about like games that he's run or played in and things like that, he said like his favorite thing is when he looks, his players are like, can I do this? And he goes, if you can explain to me how you do it, then you can do it. And he's like, and I love to just sit there and watch them like twist and like change things to like make this one weird thing that probably wasn't supposed to do that, like make it work. And I love watching people do that when they play games, being like, I would have read that rule that way, but you know what? Sure, go for it. And I think rules in games that are like meant for people to do stuff like that are so much fun.
Yeah, and like that's the kind of thing that it's about. I find in a lot of more mechanically complex fantasy adventure games, you end up with abilities that sound really exciting, but they really just mean slightly different numbers on dice or whatever. And part of the design for this game is like, we really want to give flexible backing to whatever ideas people are coming up with when they actually sit down at a table and play. So, we are trying to provide information about these abilities and putting a lot of interpretation in the hands of the players and the GM. And this is repeated kind of throughout the book, that what you're attempting to do in all of these various scenarios is negotiate for interesting events and circumstances for your characters. So you don't want something to be so powerful that it doesn't feel like it's fun to play the game. And you don't want somebody to have a power that like, it feels like, well, you always nerf it. You would never let me do the cool thing with it. All of it is the point of this game is not to control people's power. The point of the game is to have fun. And if you're both negotiating towards that, then you will arrive at the right determination.
Yeah. I think there's also a tendency when you start to do like, okay, like I want to have this like really cool, amazing, like incredibly powerful ability. I think sometimes designers get bogged down in the fact that it's so powerful. So they like really limit the number of ways that it's even useful. That it's like, this power is really cool and I love what it does. Fingers crossed that sometime in the next 6 months, we come across the one situation where I can do this thing, That's the one that frustrates me so much. I'm like, it's so cool and it's going to be great if I ever get to do it.
Well, and with Cosmic Century Knights, like we really tried when we were writing up our miraculous blessings, the most powerful ones, to make it so that kind of each one feels like, should I even be allowed to have this? This feels so powerful. And that's because, frankly, powerful antagonists can get pretty gnarly. And also, we want people to feel like they are really, really impactful figures within this world. That, but simply by having access to this ability, like it's going to change a lot of things. And of course, the thing that you're sacrificing there design-wise is, unlike a D&D character, like a third level D&D character has a huge bag of tricks that they can pull from, like so many different abilities. And in Cosmic Century Knights, like you have your blade and you get better at using it. You'll get more effort that you can use to activate different abilities. But the abilities that blade has are not going to change. So unless you do something like acquire another century blade, you are trying to make those blessings work in different creative circumstances as you play.
What do you think makes this game unique from other like JRPG style tabletop games, from other games that you've played, from other kind of like power fantasy games?
Well, I mean, certainly from JRPG style. I've only played like a few that I would say like were really influenced by JRPG. I think Ryutama would definitely be argued to be one of those. And those games, for the most part, I feel are trying to replicate the rigid systems that you see in JRPGs, which is not bad. Like I think Ryutama's a great game and there's a lot of fun mechanics in it. But it is not as creatively kind of free form as this game is. And also, I think this is important to point out, I'm not trying to get people to do what they see in JRPGs through this game. I'm trying to get people to capture the energy, bottle the lightning that inspired JRPGs. These clashing perspectives and forces coming together to birth something new into the world. So it's less rigid and it's also not trying to be a JRPG thing. And as far as other fantasy adventure games, it is walking a fine line of how much we want to lean on mechanics. There is a lot of freeform creativity that lives in this game. And the dice are there to be a platform for that creativity instead of a limiter for that creativity. So I think philosophy-wise, that's a little bit different than what it feels like the intent is behind designs like your D&Ds, your Pathfinders. I have not read Daggerheart yet, but I imagine we're living in a similar space.
Okay, so here's the part that we usually talk about the history of the game, but this is a brand new game, or we're going to be crowdfunding very soon. How long was this game in development before this upcoming crowdfunding campaign?
It is hard to nail that down specifically for two reasons. One, part of the inspiration for this game came from listening to a former One Shot Network show, All My Fantasy Children. There was this moment, and I don't even remember the specific episode, where Aaron Kitano Saez was like, well, what if a gigantic sword came from outer space? And then he just quickly walks away from the idea. And I was like, oh, but that's so cool.
Tell me more. Come back.
What a cool image. And I was like, I'm going to keep that in my pocket because that sounds so interesting. I would want to do something with it. And then I had another kind of design impulse around this thing of, I really like the idea of communal and narrowing options. The idea that when you get something in the game, sort of legacy board game style, you are crossing something off. When people roll their blessings and choose their blessings for their blades, we actually cross off those options from the list of the 3 D100 lists in the book. So if you make another knight or you make another blade, they cannot have your blessings. That's codified into the rules of this game. And I like the idea. I was compelled by the idea of something being truly uniquely yours. And I kind of had those things bouncing around for a while. And I think it's 2 years ago now at Big Bad Con, I met with the publisher over another design that I am working on called Rovers. And I was pretty sure that like I was going to work on rovers very quickly because at the convention they were like, oh yeah, we're definitely interested. We're going to start contract negotiations. And I was like, awesome, cool. And I did not, that was like an active design leading up to Big Bad Con. But then as soon as we're talking contracts, I'm like, well, I don't want to do any work on rovers unless I know, ink on the contract is dry and I'm getting paid for the work that I'm doing,
right.
Because it's not conceptual anymore. I'm not working on spec. And that negotiation really started to drag out, mainly because the people who were in charge of that publisher were extraordinarily busy. Like writing and talking about contracts is the literal worst thing that we all have to do in this industry. Not literal worst, but it's pretty close. It's very not fun.
Like the things that you get into game design for, I don't think there are many people out there that are like, oh my God, I can't wait to do contracts.
To negotiate a contract and make sure all of our
role-playing
terms are
games. They're
aligned.
not a contract simulation RPG yet.
So
I would play that.
Because I had my design like brain still buzzing, I wanted to work on something.
Yeah.
I kind of like looked at like, well, what notes do I have? Like, what things was I talking about? And I happened upon like, oh yeah, I was really compelled by this like world slicing sword idea and this exclusivity thing. And I was like, what if I started making a game about these swords? And I started to sketch out the system and it started getting bigger and bigger. And I reached a point where I was like, wow, there is more information about swords or that could potentially excite people about swords than I have in my brain. So I tapped in Drew Merzieski and I was like, hey, do you want to work on this thing with me? And so I want to say like we started working on it about 2 years ago. And then like a whole year passed, it rolled around to another Big Bad Con. And I spoke to Tyler Crumrin, who is the head of Possible World Games, our lovely publisher. And he had mentioned that he was just starting to publish other people's work at that time. And I was like, so funny. My buddy and I have this design. It might be a zine, but if we had a publisher, we would probably make it bigger than that. And Tyler was interested. We met with him, and he was like, I'm filling up this slate. These are going to be the first games published by my company that are not designed by me. And he was like, I want to put you in this slate. I don't know what my timeline looks like, but like we'll touch base. And Drew and I got very excited and just plowed through writing, just did a lot of stuff. By the time that we spoke to Tyler next, the game was essentially written, definitely needed revision and play testing, but we had the structure for it. And Tyler was like, okay, I took a look at the games that are in process that were on our slate and yours is ready to go. So we finished it. And a couple months later, we were drawing up plans to let's figure out how to crowdfund this and let's put this on the docket by the end of the current year, by the end of 2025. We want that crowdfunding campaign. And we originally thought we were actually probably going to be doing a crowdfund later in the year, maybe November, December range. But it just so happened that so much came together so quickly that I was like, it's also a great window to do it in September. And we kind of have everything. So let's do it.
Why not?
That's really cool.
That's a wild ride.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just gets you. The bug gets into you, and you put out the game.
So, do we have a 'cause these episodes are going to be releasing every Monday in September? When is the crowdfunding campaign supposed to be? Is there any details that we can showcase about that?
So, our Kickstarter is planned right now to launch on September 2nd. And I think we are running through the 30th, but I actually don't have the final date on my calendar. I just have all of the dates that I'm running promo. So yeah, it's going to be a standard, month-long Kickstarter. So while this is running, while people are listening to this right now, you can head over to Kickstarter.com and look for Cosmic Century Nights, and you will find us and our project, which is a little bit unusual because we're actually crowdfunding alongside within the same project 2 other games. Megan Cross designed a lovely card-based prompt game called Homecoming that is about somebody with a strained relationship with their family returning home to investigate the death of their mother. And Tyler has a game about hanging out with an extremely little guy called Chuck that is so basically a micro RPG with kind of fun form factor that's almost like this is just a free add-on that comes with the other things. So cool. Megan Cross, Drew and I are really excited that our projects are supporting each other. There will be options when you are backing on Kickstarter to get both games. And I just strongly recommend that everybody does that because both these games are really good, and it's also going to come with Chuck, which is the one game that I haven't gotten to play or read, but I bet that's also really good because I've liked all of Tyler's work.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
We are so close to doing our character creation. Our last question before we jump in is, do you think there are terms and concepts that people need to know to follow along? Oh my God. My dog.
So the basic things, there is the Cosmic Blade. That is the gigantic sword from outer space that carried the Century Blades to this planet. Then there are the Century Blades. Those are the 100 magical swords that spread themselves all over the world and that various heroes, villains, and other figures have been finding throughout this world's history. Then we have Century Knights. A Century Knight is anyone who has a Century Blade and has a connection enough to the blade that it has accepted them as a knight and allowed them to use its blessings. That is, if you have a Century Blade, you are a knight. It may or may not come with responsibilities and privileges within society, depending on what you do in character creation. But it's not like being a Century Knight makes you part of the armed forces of a government. It is just the name that we call people when they have this blade, and may or may not be relevant. Fell Knights are people like you with Century Blades, but who are doing bad stuff. Apart from that, I'm pretty sure. This will be important for the game effects. So effort. I explained effort. Effort is a resource that you have. You can spend to influence die results, pushing them higher. You can also spend effort to activate different blessings on your blade. When you get your blessings, it will usually say something like spend 7. And then describe the effect that happens when you spend 7. Everything else is something that I think we can explain as we come to it.
Awesome.
Excellent. Well, are we ready to dive in and make some people?
I certainly am.
Call to action.
Yeah, like that.
I thoroughly enjoy this game. The character creation for it is phenomenal. I was able to see some of the stuff up on the Patreon when the patrons were doing some playtesting a couple months ago or so. It sounds like it plays phenomenally. It has that really epic anime feel to it. And I think James and Drew have something really special here with this game. For somehow with the dice random mechanic that you'll see in the coming episodes. It just all blends together really nicely, and I cannot wait for you to see what we have come up with for this game. It really sparks your creativity in a really satisfying way. So definitely check it out. The Kickstarter's coming tomorrow, I believe, with 2 other games. And it would be fantastic if you would go and check that out in the show notes, give it a follow, and give it some money for the amount of amazing talent that they're putting into this one. So definitely check that out. But before we let you go for the day, we do have some calls to action. First up, if you missed our live stream for the Undying Bonds game design this last Friday, you have a little under a month to catch the replay on Twitch. We'll have a link in the show notes for that. If you end up missing that replay, you will be able to access both the video replay and the audio session on our Patreon at the $5 and up level once I have had a chance to have that edited. This one is slightly more produced compared to the live stream replay, and it sets up everything else going forward for our Undying Bonds game design. We aren't fully sure on the next stream date, since September is going to have a lot of streams on Wednesday evenings for Cosmic Century Nights during the crowdfunding campaign that should be going on starting tomorrow from the day this episode releases. When we do stream, however, it will likely be at the 6:30 p.m. Central U.S. time and will go until about 8 o'clock that night for about 1.5 hours of game design for our Magical Girl Meets Necromancer TTRPG Undying Bonds, right on the One Shot Twitch channel at twitch.tv/OneShotRPG. If you want to keep up with the latest information on the streams, the best place to do that is our Discord server at discord.charactercreationcast.com. We'll be putting server events with a link to the stream that folks can sign up for in order to get reminders of when we are going live. And we will also try to post to Blue Sky, as well as all levels of our Patreon, including free tiers, so that you can keep tabs there as well. Aside from that, we would love it if you checked out our C3 Patreon at patreon.com/charactercreationcast. We are so very close to our $160 a month goal, which will let us hire somebody to do monthly webpage updates to our site at charactercreationcast.com. This would let us add information to pages dedicated to all the games that we're covering on the show, including links to character sheets, links to the episodes, and more. If you are interested in helping out with this project, please reach out to us at contact.charactercreationcast.com. If you have experience with Squarespace hosting, that would be a huge bonus. In addition to that, as a thank you for everybody, we will be creating a unique enamel pin for all of our campaign level backers. And it looks like we would be able to get a whole bunch of them to give to any future campaign level backers as well. We are just a little over $5 away from that goal right now, so it's not very far away at all, and you could help get us there. If we can get to $200 a month, not only will that unlock yearly subscriptions for our supporters at a discount, it will also mean that we can afford to pay the new web admin a bit more every month to update the backlog of games on our site as well. This level is only 5 campaign level backers away, and it would be remarkable if we could get there soon. Joining at the campaign level means that you get stickers, new stickers, for every month that you are a patron, including one of every sticker we have on hand still. And right now that total is over 25 stickers. You'll also get a set of 3d6 C3 branded dice that are really great quality from Chessex, a personalized thank you card from the both of us, handcrafted by Amelia herself, as well as many other perks. This is all for $10 a month and will go a long way towards helping provide that one-stop shop for any of the games that we cover on the show. We also have tiers at the $5 level, which does get you the dice and a thank you card, as well as our bonus episodes. And we also have a $1 level that gets you various perks as well, like our occasional chit-chat episodes and bonus outtakes. So head on over to patreon.com/charactercreationcast Character Creation Cast to get all of that info. In addition to all of that, we do like to thank our current patrons every episode. Your support truly helps out a great deal, so let's do that right now. Thanks to Lieutenant DJG, aka Tigranosaurus, and Eric Bonts. We are so glad to have you with us. We're glad to have you here as well, Daryl Holiday II, Shadim Kabal, and the Shyest Barbarian. Thanks for supporting. Thanks to Benjamin Sweeney, Rob Fletcher, and Kevin Brown. So glad to have you here. Tentacle Duck, John Adamus, and E3 Sketchpad. Many thanks to you. Cole McCallum, Carlos Salazar, and Eric S. Happy to have you here. Thank you. Ian Potmeyer, Liam G, and Brian Colm, thank you all so much. Thank you to Guardian GM, Tanglefoot, and Blue Kryptonite. Your support brings us so much joy. Thank you to Danny, Nicole Trainer, and Liam Murray. Kenny, and Brian Kurtz, and Mark E. Fair, thank you all so much as well. We're glad to have you here, Drew Owen, Oz, and James McKinley. Thanks for supporting. Sean Metcalf, Robert, and Kevin Bates. Thanks for helping us make this show. And Deadly Edley and Allison Cole. Thanks for your continued support. And thank you to all of our future patrons. If you want to join this phenomenal group of individuals, please head on over to patreon.com/charactercreationcast and help us out. And with more assistance, we'll be able to make those website upgrades to make exploring your favorite games that much easier. And if you want to join in the discussion with our hosts, some of our guests, and a bunch of fans, head on over to our Discord at discord.charactercreationcast.com. Finally, if you want to help us out in another way that doesn't require any money, you can leave a rating or review for our show on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or Podcast Addict, and we will read every new 5-star review as we get them and as we both have had a chance to record together. That's all that we have for today's episode. Join us here next week when we get into the character creation and world building for this phenomenal game with James. You won't want to miss that one. Until then, take care, everyone. Stay safe, drink some water, and keep making those amazing people. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of this character creation series. We'll be back in part 2, picking up right where we left off.
Character Creation Cast is a production of the One Shot Podcast Network and can be found online at www.charactercreationcast.com. Head to the website to get more information on our hosts, this show, and even our press kit. Character Creation Cast can also be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at CreationCast, or on our Discord server at discord.charactercreationcast.com. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Bolter, and I can be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at Lord Neptune or online at lordneptune.com. Our other host, Amelia Antrim, can be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at Ginger Reckoning. Music for this episode is used with a Creative Commons license or with permission from the podcast they originated from. Further information can be found within the show notes. Our main theme music is Hero Remix by Steve Combs and is used with a Creative Commons license. This podcast is owned by us under Creative Commons. This episode was edited by Ryan Bolter. Further information for the game systems used and today's guests can also be found in the show notes. If you'd like to support our show, find us on Patreon. Get access to bonus episodes, exclusive merch, and much more at patreon.com/charactercreationcast. Thanks for joining us. And remember, we find that the best part of any role-playing game is character creation. So go out there and create some amazing people. We'll see you next time.